All right, guys, I'm trying to do the 0 to 100 launch here, but the specialist timing gear, which uses satellites, is not able to get a satellite connection because of the acoustic glass treatment, I believe. Oh, we have a fix. We have a fix if I put it up here. Fist me, let's do this. Oh yeah, pretty good off the line. No loss of traction. Oh, that was pretty damn good. Seconds. Hey guys, the day has finally come after 3.5 long, grueling years. Nissan has finally delivered the Ariya, their mid-sized electric crossover SUV thing, to Australia. Now, this thing has been on sale for some time in Japan, Europe, and America, but we're finally getting it down under. But is it too little, too late for Nissan? Well, today we're going to be getting into that. Now, of course, this thing is built on Nissan's latest electric vehicle platform, which the new Nissan Leaf will be built on. And I can say pretty categorically that this is a whole new evolution of product from Nissan compared to the outgoing Leaf. A lot of people don't realize that Nissan was one of the first OEMs to make an electric vehicle. And while it looks like a pretty futuristic Qashqai, it's actually more similar in size to the Nissan X-Trail. So, of course, what we're going to be doing today is taking you for a full exterior tour of this latest Nissan Ariya at the local launch here in Australia. Of course, I'm going to be going through its pretty luxurious Japanese interior. I'll be talking about practicality, battery, charging, and of course, I'll be giving it lots of saws around the twisties here and seeing just how this top spec all-wheel drive performs on the road. And is it worth going for something like a Nissan Ariya over something like a Tesla Model Y? Let's get straight into it. So let's talk pricing for the Nissan Ariya here in Australia. So the range kicks off with the base Engage spec, which does come in at $55,840, and that is front-wheel drive only with the base 63 kilowatt-hour battery. For an extra $4,000, you can go for the advanced trim, which adds some nice luxury features on the interior like heated seats and a heated steering wheel, as well as a 10-speaker Bose sound system. Then if you add another $4,000, so $63,840, you can get the Advanced Plus trim, which does come with the larger battery, 87 kilowatt hours, adds about 120 kilometers of range, as well as ultra suede for the seats and a panoramic glass sunroof. And that to me is probably the sweet spot of the range. But if it is performance you're after for your Nissan Ariya, you can go for this dual motor E-Force all-wheel drive trim, which is called the Evolve spec. And that comes in at a whopping $71,840. So more expensive than the Tesla Model Y long-range all-wheel drive, which does 0 to 100 in like 4.3 seconds. So keep that in mind. If you are going to be going for the dual motor Ariya, you're going to be paying a significant premium over the Advanced Plus. But let's get into the way that this thing looks. And interestingly, it actually has quite a big presence on the road. It is technically a mid-size crossover car, but it's actually wider than a Nissan X-Trail, and you actually get a decent amount of space on the inside, but we'll get back to that. So you can also see we have this beautiful bronze color here today. It looks very cool, especially with this completely blacked out grille. It is plugged up and it has this interesting pattern on it, which I believe they called Kamika or something like that. It is a traditional Japanese pattern, apparently. You get these really nice and sleek daytime running lights there, which look like they've been etched in with a samurai sword into the front of this car. Super bright LED headlights with adaptive high beam as well. Of course, you get your Nissan badge there, and you do get some airflow down the bottom here with this black splitter. We do get additional airflow along the side here with these sharp creases that have been cut here, and they are actually functional. They do funnel air along the side of the wheels, which do help with efficiency and range. And of course, we do have our camera array up there, as well as a radar built into the grille here, which does help with Nissan's Pro Pilot adaptive cruise control system. But let's check out the side. So coming to the side, and this is why this crossover SUV is becoming such a popular segment in Australia, because it has actually quite a long wheelbase. It is 2,775 millimeters, the wheelbase, and the length is 4,595 millimeters, which is just 85 millimeters shorter than the X-Trail. And so because of that, you get really short front and rear overhangs, and it really maximizes space on the interior while also keeping a low coupé shape for efficiency. So this is why we're seeing more and more crossovers on the road. It's just a really good shape for electric vehicles. The width, like I said, is wider than the X-Trail, 1,850 millimeters, which is 10 mil wider, and the height is 1,660 millimeters, which is 65 millimeters shorter. First thing you'll notice on the side are these these really cool machine cut 20-inch alloys. They are wrapped in Dunlop SP Sport Max. We also get blacked out mirror caps as well as a 360 camera. Of course, we do get keyless entry and go across the range. Privacy glass here, and this does come with the two-tone roof. So you do get a black roof there. No roof rails, unfortunately, but you do get a pretty massive glass roof up there. And yeah, apart from that, it's just a really low-slung, coupé shaped crossover. But let's check out the rear. All right, and coming to the rear, and I do apologize for the dirt back here. I have been doing some, let's just say, light off-roading today in this all-wheel drive EV. But as you can see, we have these really cool tail lights here. It is a full light bar, which is starting to become a bit of a played out trend, but who knows, maybe it'll die off and then come back 20 years later. Nissan spelt out here nice and proudly. We've got our E-Force badging there, which is Nissan's all-wheel drive system. Ariya spelt out here with some interesting futuristic font. This whole car just screams Japanese futurism, doesn't it? And we also get a nice sporty spoiler up the top here. So for charging speed, the Ariya's maximum DC charging speed is 130 kilowatts, which is definitely not as fast as the Tesla Model Y, but it should allow it to go from 10 to 80% in about 35 minutes for the smaller 63 kilowatt hour battery and 40 minutes for the larger 87 kilowatt hour battery. You can also either do single phase AC charging at 7.4 kilowatts or three phase at 22 kilowatts, which will allow it to charge in about 4.5 hours for the smaller battery. Now, you do get a powered tailgate on the advanced spec and above. So as far as boot space goes, you do get 466 liters of luggage capacity. Unfortunately, because this does have the extra battery cells, which adds an extra story to the battery module, we don't get any underfloor storage here. However, we do have a small little pocket here for our charging cables, as well as our Bose subwoofer, and we also get a tire repair kit there. You can also see we have access to what looks to be our 12-volt battery there as well, which is interesting. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I spoke about luggage capacity without talking about the Model Y, which is a main competitor to this car. Now, that thing has a whopping 854 liters with the second row in place. So interesting, the Model Y definitely has a lot more space, but definitely not double this. This is still a very usable cargo area. You do get some plastic hooks there, as well as some extra storage on the sides, and we also have a couple of tie down points. Of course, we can drop the second row and they do fold pretty flat, and that expands space up to 1,280 liters here in the all-wheel drive, or 1,350 liters in the two-wheel drive specs. But you got to look at the Tesla Model Y, which claims 2,158 liters of luggage space. And of course, that is significantly more space than this car. So in terms of practicality, the Model Y is still top of the class, but let's check out the interior. Alrighty, thonk test. Oh, that was a bloody solid thonk. How is the interior of the Nissan Ariya? And to me, it's a bit of a mixed bag, and I'll get into it. So first thing you'll notice as you sit in the interior is just how minimalist and how spacious it feels. First, let's just start with the elephant in the room, this center console. It's a very strange unit. You can move it forward and backward, which is new. It's very, very cool. And if you move it all the way back, you'll notice you have a pretty much completely flat floor here at the front, which actually sounds really good in theory, but then you start to realize, hey, if I've got any larger items, where do I put them? Like, for example, okay, I've got my specialist timing gear and a couple of GoPros, for example. I want to store them somewhere. So if I open up this glove box, I can fit the specialist timing gear, but nothing else, because that's a very tiny glove box. But I have another glove box that I can open. That doesn't fit anything. So you get two glove boxes, but they're both pretty useless sizes, in my opinion. What about my soft center armrest, which is really nice, actually feels really nice. Well, if I open it up, all we have in here is pretty much a wireless charger and a little spot for your keys. Okay, no storage in there. Look, I have two cup holders here. That's pretty cool. And actually I can pull out the center divider, and now I get a decent amount of space, probably enough just for the specialist timing gear. But what about my GoPros? Okay. Oh, what about the door bins? Okay, well, there's enough space for maybe a water bottle and maybe just my specialist timing gear, but still, what about my GoPros? So pretty quickly you expose the lack of any kind of storage bin or anything at the front here. And if I put them on the floor, well, that's just silly and dangerous, because what if it rolls underneath the brake pedal while I'm driving? Yeah, clever in theory. I think in practice, the ergonomics are just not fantastic. The design is really, really cool though, and you get this really awesome, interesting design here with the ambient lighting. It actually does look quite cool. So yeah, while I do like the spacious feeling of the front seats, I have found the ergonomics and practicality to be not as good as you might think when you first sit in the car. Let's just say it that way. But what do I like about about the front seats? Well, I really like this leather-wrapped steering wheel. It feels really nice and premium in the hand. You get buttons to control everything on the left, your Pro Pilot controls here on the right. The screens up in front are decent, but actually, again, a bit of a mixed bag. So the screen in front of me, 12.3-inch unit, very bright, very customizable, and really responsive. Shows me everything I need and nothing I don't, which is exactly what you want from a digital driver's display. And I really like this kind of wave setup of the screens, how it brings the infotainment screen slightly closer to you than the driver's display. It is quite thoughtful attention to detail, and I actually like it. However, coming to this infotainment system, I mean, this would not look out of place, honestly, in 2015. The screen has this weird glow to it that looks like an old 90s TV show, like The Bold and the Beautiful, how all the characters have like glowing skin. I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but when you look at text, it just looks like it's glowing. It's just not a very clear display. It is very responsive, I'll give it that, and I do like how it shows your available range on the map view, and also your energy usage, what charges you have nearby, and you also have climate controls fully laid out in a really comprehensive way, so no issue with that. But yeah, the actual screen itself, it just feels a little bit dated compared to some of the competition. Of course, we do get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and it connects no problem. And I also like how we get some controls down below here, and it is nicely integrated into this faux wood panel here, which does look cool. That theme is also continued here to this center console, which I'll move forward once again, which is quite cool. I do find myself keeping it in the forward-most position just because I get the most armrest then. But yeah, we do get more of this faux wood here, and we also have our drive mode selector. It is backlit, so you can see it clearly at night, and it does have a nice tactile responsiveness to it. Though if you are searching for it while not taking your eyes off the road, you won't be able to feel where the button is. So that's just something to keep in mind. We also have our e-pedal button there. Our shift-by-wire, so back for drive, forward for reverse, pretty standard there. And you can see we get a pretty decent surround view camera there. When it comes to touch points on the interior, it feels very nice. So we actually get this really interesting blue color used on the upholstery, and even up here with this kind of suede-like material there, it does feel nice and soft. However, if you start feeling around, like up here on the dash, that's all scratchy, hollow, cheap kind of feeling plastic. It is a bit softer up here, and this feels nice, but even here on the door, you just get kind of plastic. So if you go looking for it, there are actually plenty of cheap materials. Even this headliner does feel and look a little bit cheap in my opinion. But speaking of butts, actually, where you put your butt, the seat, actually is super nice. I really like the pattern of the stitching on these seats. They are meant to, you know, stimulate blood circulation and blood flow, which is good for longer journeys, and they do feel very comfortable. You do get electric adjustment for the front seats, as well as four-way lumbar support, which is good to see. You also do get interesting ambient lighting in this car. So we do get it on the door panels here, as well as down here in this massive open storage area. And what Nissan say is that they're meant to signify lanterns. Now, why lanterns? Well, back in traditional, I guess, antiquity of Japan, people would put lanterns outside of their businesses to signify, hey, I'm open, come in, like you're welcome to come in. That's what the lantern means. So maybe it's, you know, metaphorical for Nissan saying, hey, you know, we're still here, we're still open, come on in and buy an Ariya. But I don't know, it looks cool at least, and it has a nice throwback to traditional Japanese culture, and that is actually applied to many elements in the interior of this car. Real quick, let's talk connectivity. So we do get a single USB-C port there, USB-A port as well, and a 12-volt socky-wocky down there, a tiny little storage area down there as well. Of course, we do also get a massive glass roof here in this car. I'm gonna close it because the pervy sun is getting in my eyes, and that does make the interior feel a lot more spacious and airy. So yes, overall, a mixed bag for the interior. While I do like some of these touch points, I'm not a fan of that 12.3-inch infotainment display. It just feels a little bit old to me. And I'm not a massive fan of this center console design with the massive amount of space here. I think there needs to be some sort of divider there to stop items from rolling into my footwell to make it a proper usable storage section, if that makes sense. But let's check out the back seats. Alrighty, back seats, thumb test number 2. Very solid. So what do I think of the space in the back of the Nissan Ariya? Now, while legroom is fantastic, sitting behind myself, I am, you know, a lowly 4'1" individual. Toe room, unfortunately, is not great. And that is due to the battery sitting directly underneath the floor. And my head is getting quite close to the roof there. So keep that in mind. In terms of legroom, fantastic, but toe room and headroom, as well as seating angle, is definitely not ideal in the back seat of the Nissan Ariya. You get the same quilted pattern as up front, which does, again, help with blood flow, and it does feel quite nice to sit on. We also get 3-stage heating on the outboard rear seats, which is good to see, as well as 2 USB-C ports there and a couple of air vents in the center. In terms of storage, it's a little bit limited. The door bins are tiny, and if we fold down this center armrest, it is a nice soft thing, but we do just get a couple of cup holders. And storage is pretty much only relegated to these weird denim feeling, very cheap feeling mat pockets here on the front seats. And of course, quality of materials, soft up there, nice there, scratchy there, so definitely not bad. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention in the front seats is the Bose sound system is actually pretty decent too. And I can also slightly recline the back seats, but not much. So while the Ariya isn't winning any prizes for the back seats, it definitely does a good enough job to at least be a consideration for you if you are looking for a family electric car. In fact, if you are in the market for a new car, make sure you Google CarSauce Buy or scan the QR code on the screen now, because we've just launched CarSauce Buy 2.0. It now intelligently matches you with the right dealer for your needs. We have a massive dealership network of literally thousands of dealers across the country that we make fight to the death to get you the best price on your next car. So if that sounds good to you and you don't want to go through the annoying process of haggling at a dealership, of course, this is no obligation, no lock-in, and it's entirely transparent. Join our many thousands of happy customers that have used our service over the last year and a half. In fact, we regularly get comments and emails from you guys that have used the service that are commending us on our CarSauce Buy. So we really appreciate the support. And of course, if you are in the market for any new car, make sure you check out CarSauce Buy. There's literally no reason not to. Just like there's literally no reason why I wouldn't launch this car. Let's do it. All right, guys, I'm trying to do the 0 to 100 launch here, but the specialist timing gear, which uses satellites, is not able to get a satellite connection because of the acoustic glass treatment, I believe, which is for NVH, keeping the cabin nice and quiet, but unfortunately keeps the satellites out. Let me try and open up the sunroof. Oh, no, that'll kill my camera. What if I put it up here? Oh, we have a fix. We have a fix if I put it up here. Hopefully it doesn't fall on my head, but we actually have a satellite fix. So let's bloody do this. First thing I'm gonna do is put this thing into sport mode so we get the full fat power out of these 2 electric motors. I am in the all-wheel drive variant. It is a pretty wet day. Please don't fall on my head. I'm gonna give it a brake boost launch and you're going to fist me. Let's do this. Oh yeah, pretty good off the line. No loss of traction. Come on, all-wheel drive. Oh yeah. Oh, that was pretty damn good. Let me pull over and see what we did. Alrighty, guys. So 0 to 100 in 5.23 seconds. That is bloody good. I wasn't expecting it to be that fast. Let's try this thing normally. All right, so driving the new Nissan Ariya. Let's give it some sauce. First thing I'm gonna do is put it into sport mode and I'm gonna plant it. Let's see how much power this thing has got. You hear that sound there? Very spooky. So let's talk about the powertrain in this thing. Now, you can get it as either a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive. I'm gonna switch it back from sport mode because that sound is distracting. Now, the front-wheel drive variant does come with a single electric motor. It makes 160 kilowatts of power, 300 Newton meters of torque. And that is available with either the base 63 kilowatt hour battery or the 87 kilowatt hour battery. Now, the bigger battery version actually gets a slightly more powerful motor because it is about 150 kilos heavier. So that's 178 kilowatt. This variant here, I'm in the all-wheel drive Evolve, which adds an extra 160 kilowatt motor to the rear, and that brings total power output up to 290 kilowatt as we take this corner quite vigorously in the wet. Now, this is why I'm very glad I'm in the all-wheel drive variant today, because it is very iffy weather here on the peninsula, very kind of wet. And this is where that E-Force all-wheel drive system really comes into action, because Nissan were telling me yesterday that this thing can react at 1/10,000th of a second to a loss of traction. And I was testing that out today, and I was really not losing traction, and it is pretty poor conditions today. So for me, the all-wheel drive is worth it just for that aspect. Now, in terms of range, the smaller battery variants do get 385 kilometers on the WLTP, whereas the Advanced Plus, which gets the larger battery, does get 504 kilometers on the WLTP. This one, because it is more of a performance variant, you do get 487 kilometers. Now, I have to say, as I take it through these twisties, this thing does have a very kind of Euro tune, and what I mean by that is it's definitely on the firmer end. You can definitely feel more of the road, more of the bumps. However, Oh yeah, ball buster there. There was a bit of rebound from that one, I'm not gonna lie. And one thing I noticed, not in this variant, but in the lower grades, which don't have that extra motor in the rear, is the rear end does bounce around quite a bit. And this does get the exact same suspension setup. It is a multi-link rear suspension as that variant, but I guess having that extra weight really makes a difference. As far as the steering goes, it's definitely on the heavier end. Switching to sport mode does seem to make things feel a bit heavier, but it definitely doesn't feel disconnected like some of the competition. One way to test that out is we are going to come up to Saucy Corner. Now, this is a really good test of the all-wheel drive system as well. So, switching back into sport mode, you're going to fist me. Let's do this. No loss of traction off the line. I will say the way it delivers power is very gentle, but my goodness, does it build up quick. You get all 600 Newton meters. Wow. Wow. A little bit of understeer and it's cut power a bit, but I mean, this thing is pushing 2.7 ton through a hairpin. Oh yeah, a bit of understeer there. But then the way it pulls out, because of the way it delivers power, which is very kind of gradual, it doesn't seem to lose traction off the line, which I guess for a family, you know, electric SUV, that's kind of what you want. Now, in terms of the safety systems of this car, I am pretty impressed. So you do get Nissan's Pro Pilot system. It is a pretty good system. It's well calibrated. It keeps you in the center of the lane pretty nicely. And overall, I haven't found the safety systems to be too kind of overbearing like some of the competitors in this segment. I'm looking at you, DPAL S07. I mean, I haven't tested the update yet, but that thing, my goodness. Now, one thing I want to talk about real quick is this e-pedal mode. Now, this is Nissan's regenerative braking system, but one thing that I've noticed that's very strange is if I let up off the accelerator here, I can actually see the brake pedal pushing in. To me, that makes me feel like I'm using my brake pads, which makes me feel like I would be using more brakes than necessary while driving. Now, I'm sure it's just for show. I'm sure it's not actually pressing the brake, but when I see the brake pedal go in like that and it feels like it's braking, it makes me wonder, is it using regen braking or is it just braking for me? That's a bit of a weird quirk of the e-pedal, and it's not something I've noticed on other Nissan electrified products. And real quick, before I get into my final thoughts, let's quickly go into my usage. And right now, you'll see that over the last 5 hours of driving, we've been averaging 20.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which if you work it out, 87 kilowatt hour battery, you are probably going to be looking at the low 400s in terms of range. So definitely not as efficient as something like a Tesla Model Y, for example. All right, some pretty interesting stuff with the Nissan Ariya. I'm not sure how I feel. I guess we'll have to get into my final thoughts. Okay, so final thoughts now on the Nissan Ariya. What do I think of the car? Now, I have to say, if Nissan had brought this in 2022 when it was globally released, I reckon this thing would have been a smash hit in the Australian market. Now, Nissan say there wasn't as much of a market back in 2022 for EVs as there are today, which is definitely true. However, the market is what you make it. And if you bring products to market that are fantastic like this one, or at least were fantastic 3.5 years ago, then that's how you carve out your space in the market. But who am I to tell Nissan how to run their business? Nissan say they could have waited even longer to bring this in. But it is what it is. What do I think of the Ariya in 2025? Well, a couple of things really let it down. I have to say the charging speed lets it down compared to competitors. The range, 385 kilometers on the base 64 kilowatt hour battery is just not enough in 2025, especially when you can get into a Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive base model for the same price as the base model of this, and you get close to 100 kilometers more range in that car. That thing is really efficient. On the road, there were moments where it was definitely firmer than I would have liked. Now, of course, owning a Nissan does bring a lot more than just the car to the equation. You do get a 10-year warranty, 300,000 kilometers, which is actually one of the best warranties in Australia. But I'm not sure that I would argue that having a fantastic warranty really justifies the price of this in the segment, considering it is an older product. And you can buy newer products for the same price. The BYD Sealion 7 is incredibly competitively priced. And if you're looking at the dual motor Evolve spec of the Ariya, then you might as well just look at the all-wheel drive long-range Tesla Model Y, which is way more powerful, faster off the line, and arguably more refined on the road. But of course, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you keen to test drive the Nissan Ariya? And what do you think about Nissan finally bringing the Ariya to Australia? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you guys are interested in any new car, make sure you Google CarSauce Buy or scan the QR code on screen now. We've recently released a newer version of CarSauce Buy that more intelligently matches you to the best dealership for your needs. And of course, if you haven't already, hit subscribe because we've got plenty more EV reviews coming. All right, ciao for now.